This 3-episode stretch has a couple of identity reveals. It solved a few mysteries, and it confirmed some of my theories, but it also debunked others. Oh, and it had a couple of awesome battles. I'm always a sucker for awesome battles. So, let's get to it. The first thing I'll say is that I found out the promise on the snowy mountaintop. Well, it wasn't anything near as mysterious as I thought. I really tried to make a lot more hay out of that than what happened to be there. And I guess apparently it does snow in Attack on Titan. I really felt like I hadn't seen any snow before. And, you know, we got some glimpses in their cadet training during season 1. And I kind of thought that was the scope of it. But I was wrong. There's a diverse terrain. And maybe there's 4 completely different seasons in Attack on Titan. Lots of weather. So it wasn't this mysterious lost time or some kind of ice age or some remote place on the North Pole where Titans make promises. I was a little bit off on that. But I did enjoy what we got to see there. And we got to see not only a little bit of the character of Ymir and of Krista and to develop both of them a little bit more. We got to see Daz, suffering from frostbite. And we saw how the promise went down. And the promise went down for a selfless reason. The promise went down to save Daz. And Ymir kind of cleverly used her Titan trick to get him down a cliff and get him back to the base camp a little bit sooner so he didn't freeze to death. But as a result of those events, that's when the promise happened. And to a degree, a whole lot of that promise is about names. And I've got to talk about these names. Sort of the difference in the names and the similarity in the names. We're talking about Ymir and Krista here. When you're thinking about narrative theory, or if you're just talking about stuff in general, you think in a couple of different ways. You can think that opposites attract, and it's always fun to see opposites together. Or you can see like attracts like, or you can have echoes and mirror images where they're alike in some ways and opposites in others. And that's personally what I find most fulfilling in a story. And we really get this nice kind of opposites and the same at once with Krista and Ymir. And in the simplest way that I can kind of illustrate that is that they both have names that they sort of carry as a scarlet letter, if you want to say that. And they both dealt with it differently. So they had that similarity with the name that serves kind of as a curse. Krista changed her name. Ymir refused to change hers. So she's keeping that name that might be the very reason she has a less than favorable experience in life at the moment. But how are they alike other than just they both have names? Well, I think the names represent how they're alike. Some ways we haven't quite been told yet, but we can always kind of guess about this. And what I think is they both have a sort of grand lineage. Grand is a, subjective term. You can interpret that a couple of different ways. I mean, we find out that Krista's lineage is from the nobility. But Ymir must also have some kind of grand lineage. And as the story unfolds, we'll see she's not really tightly aligned with any of the groups that she could potentially be a part of. But I think they probably both represent either thrown away parts of their lineage or there's some source of shame for their lineage. And it may not be as simple with Ymir as it is with Krista, where it's as simple as her father doesn't want her around or her siblings don't want her around or her father's family doesn't want her around. There's too many heirs. She's the illegitimate child of a noble. And they're worried she might make problems with the succession. Now, depending on the rules of succession in various societies, sometimes illegitimate children aren't even in that equation unless they start an armed revolt or something like that. So I can see where they might be afraid of Krista's very existence, the, quote, legitimate children or the legitimate heirs of this noble. But what I really start to think about is what exactly is the society that the Titan Shifters belong to? And we know followers of Ymir from Elsa's Notebook. Once again, people say maybe I should have waited a while to watch that. Maybe it's let too much out of the bag and I know the significance of Ymir's name. But now that I have the knowledge, I'm going to use it. But we know that name Ymir is significant in some form in Titan culture, which is what I'll call it. And it makes me wonder, with these two being united and working together, is this like a narrative framework where they each represent this sort of delineation from over 100 years ago of some kind of original alliance or original disagreement conflict that led to the state of affairs in our current show that we get to see. And I wonder if there was like an original truce. I've talked about this feels like a broken promise. So I'm just going to say this original promise, if it was made by the either actual biological ancestors or sort of the spiritual ancestors of Amir and Krista, and what they represent is a new generation who's come down from both of them, and it's outcasts from both of those ruling classes, if you want to call it that. And they represent the possibility of reforming this allegiance or rebuilding this truce. If like that combination of Amir and Krista could be the answer to some sort of peaceful coexistence of the factions. That's really what I'm feeling like they're laying down the groundwork for here. And I might be way off, or I might not, but that's what's going on in my mind right now. Something else that, happens in this first episode in this 3-episode stretch primarily is where I see it, but we see selfless acts lead to an upturn of events. What I mean by that, let's take the case of Daz, who's suffering from hypothermia, and things are looking bad for him. And Krista trying to rescue him, Amir points out maybe you're doing this for your own glory and not for Daz's benefit. Amir doesn't want to reveal who she is to the world. She doesn't want to show her power. But in the end, they both make some selfless decisions. Krista telling Amir, go on, don't wait with us, don't help us, we'll meet you there. And Amir saying, well, we could throw him off the cliff. None of those things totally work out. But then Amir uses her Titan power to get him to rescue. She manages to sort of avert Krista's eyes with a distraction in the form of tossing her against a tree that causes a little mini avalanche of snow to cover her up. Krista's befuddled, but they do make this promise that if Amir reveals who she really is by, being a Titan shifter, then Krista will reveal who she really is by telling her true name to Amir at the very least. But she tells it to more people than Amir. And then we also find out that Krista, at least the true identity of Krista, has a bounty on her head. That's part of the reason I would change my name if there was a bounty on my head. I wouldn't be as brave as Amir in that situation. I would be a lot more like Krista. But then also I like this idea that the leaders of the church have arranged for Krista to join the cadets and to go into the military. And that's sort of a way to avoid this bounty and avoid the trouble. And it really makes me think a lot of like people taking the black in Game of Thrones or joining the Night's Watch. I'm not here to talk about Game of Thrones, but that's a way where if you want to get rid of an heir, as we saw in there's a character that's forced to join the Night's Watch. Also, if you've got a death sentence, you can join the black and avoid that. So I'm kind of seeing a little parallel there. It's cool. If you're a fan of both properties, you probably like that. But when Amir does, help out and she saves Krista's bacon at the top of that castle when she decides she wants to step in for some reason and help Krista so that she can live a life that she's proud of, she transforms into this Titan, reveals that she's a Titan shifter, has this awesome transformation, one of the coolest I've ever seen. But she jumps around, she's acrobatic, biting into people, and to me, she kind of looks like a spider monkey, like just flying around like a spider monkey, coming at these Titans that are much larger than her with reckless abandon, and she has these teeth, and she looks like a shark, like Jaws, just coming at him. And I think she looks like a spider shark, so I'm going to call her a spider shark, and it's impressive, like the fury and the skill and just the viciousness when she's fighting to try to save Krista up at the top of that castle. But then also, Krista decides, you know what? Forget about trying to keep the castle from falling. Let it fall. Just beat those guys. And Krista gets kind of selfless, and she comes out there. Things really take a bad turn for Amir. She's getting pounced on. Krista runs up. She hasn't told her name yet. She's doing something selfless, going into harm's way, facing Titans unarmed. And then we have this upturn in events because the cavalry comes in. And that's when Mikasa just flies in, along with the rest of the scouts, slice through the nape of that Titan that's about to chomp Krista. They all come in, just mop up duty. They manage to save everybody's bacon. We do find out that Amir, though badly wounded, still seems to be alive, and thank goodness she's got that Titan healing factor, right? And Krista reveals her name, and her name is Historia, or Historia. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I say all the names wrong. You guys know that by now. And Reiner is here when this is going on, and we're gonna get to talk a lot about Reiner. So how about we just go ahead and talk about that right now? And then I'm gonna come back a little bit more to Amir and Chris. We're gonna go back and forth between these two groups for the most part. But Reiner, he used to be a warrior. And then he became a soldier, and now he's a warrior again. And I love it the way that we get episodes kind of stacked a little bit away from each other. And they have, one of them has the name soldier, another episode has the name warrior, to just let us see him and exactly what the show does mean by soldier and warrior. And you know, I'll pat myself on the back. I kind of caught on to that a little bit in that naming convention. And you know, Reiner reveals himself to be the armored titan in this story arc, in these 3 episodes. And he says some things that make me a little bit more curious. One thing he says is that he feels like he's being devolved. He talks about what he has devolved into. And that makes me think a lot. It makes me think, like, first off, was he starting to really feel like a soldier? Because he has some actions that make me think he really felt like part of the team. He really felt like a scout. He really felt like a soldier. I'm thinking that by some of the actions we've seen from him along the way, things in flashbacks. He does things that I guess you could argue was to win over the trust of the group he was with. But sometimes I feel like he was really starting to embrace humanity a little bit and embrace his life as a soldier. And I guess in his mind, he feels devolved. He feels like maybe just the regular humans are a lower life form than the Titan shifters. And I can see where he might come from with that attitude. But I think it was really telling that he says he's starting to feel devolved, like he's feeling more like a soldier than he does like a Titan. And I think that's worth paying attention to. I wonder how that's going to pan out as things go forward. He does express how he feels like a soldier is less than a warrior. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I talked in my previous review video about what I thought the differences between a warrior and a soldier are, and I've got a lot of respect for the things a soldier does. Like I said before, a warrior can kill and a warrior can destroy, but a soldier protects and a soldier rebuilds. But something else Reiner says about the difference between a warrior and a soldier, he says a warrior has no choice but to follow a direct path to the end. And I might be paraphrasing just a little bit, but that's pretty close to what he says. And I have to wonder, like, what is the end for Reiner? And he says a couple of things that catch my attention, but I have to think a direct path to the end, and he's taken a pretty bold action atop a wall by announcing that he's the armored titan and transforming and taking on the Survey Corps and Eren right then and there, like ready to bring it into it. But what is an end for Reiner? Well, I think it's victory, or is maybe the end death? Or is it either one? But there's something else that he says. He says that he was sent to destroy all humanity. So that tells me that Reiner doesn't consider himself part of humanity. But Eren, of course, does consider himself part of humanity, and I don't really know how Annie felt about it. We didn't get a chance to hear her contemplation or her point of view on Titan versus humanity, with which does she identify. But he does say, Reiner says to Eren that if Eren joins him, he won't have to destroy the walls any further, and he won't have to wipe out all of humanity. So there's some other end that Reiner kind of has his eyes on, apart from destroying all humanity. And he does say at one point that he's going to take back the home that was stolen again. And in the context, he could be talking about, you know, an area in the Wall Maria zone that fell after Trost and, you know, humanity had to go back in behind Wall Rose. But he could also be talking about something older, an older home. And he does talk here about a Titan homeland. That's what I'm going to call it. A place for other people like Reiner. I don't know if it's a sort of a hereditary home or like their original homeland from whence they emanated. I once again am thinking about this broken promise that must have happened 100 and something years ago to lead to this conflict that's coming up right now. But if he thinks that Eren could make it so that he could get his homeland back without killing all of humanity, well, I wonder just how in the heck Eren could do that. Like, does he think Eren could be the leverage that his side, which I still don't quite know what his side is, but his side in this battle could use to get a surrender from humanity? Or is he thinking more like it would be a possibility for a diplomatic solution? I could see in sort of an arms race, if humanity only has one Titan shifter they can rely on, and that's Eren, you take that away and humanity would be forced to surrender. But I also wonder if there's more to it. Like, does it have something to do with Grisha's basement? The fact that Eren has the key to Grisha's basement. And my goodness, I want to know what's in Grisha's basement, but now there's like so many other things I want to know too. I can't waste my energy thinking anymore about what's in the basement, but maybe that's part of it. But I do kind of wonder where exactly is this Titan homeland, for lack of a better term. This place that Reiner wants to take back that was stolen from him, and I think maybe not necessarily from him directly, but from his people or his ancestors or his group. And I'm really thinking it was probably something to do with the area of the capital in Walsena. I feel like that's part of this broken promise once again. And I also think about the fact that Reiner and Bertolt and Emir, if she was in on this, which I don't think she was, and maybe even one other individual, they were sent to infiltrate the military, and Reiner and Bertolt in particular went with the scouts, whereas Annie went with the military police to be in the capital. And I think there was something like someone coming from the inside with people coming from the outside. They meet in the middle, take back the capital. I'm just kind of thinking maybe that was their plan, but I think it's got to do with the capital. That's probably that original homeland that was stolen. That's kind of how things work. Probably stolen from the Beast Titan before it was stolen from Reiner. I don't know. And also, can we talk about the super casual way that Reiner just revealed he was the Armored Titan? Like, he's like, oh, by the way, I destroyed those walls at Trost 4 years ago, and I killed all those people, and I came to destroy all of humanity, but if you come with me, I won't have to do that. I mean, he talks about it almost like a forced apology. It's not like a rage-fueled reveal. It's not bombastic in any way. It's very subtle and underspoken. And it really happens in a way, such a casual way, that it makes me feel like on the inside, Reiner is really breaking at that moment. Like, he is so at war with the duality of his nature, not just Titan and human, but soldier and warrior, that he's really breaking down and he's cracking up, and he just has to get out of this. He doesn't care if it's victory or death. He can't do this anymore, and he just has to tell somebody, and Aaron's the person he can tell. And with that reveal, I'm feeling a little bit more confident about what I call the aging question. Like, wouldn't Reiner have been too young to have been the Armored Titan at the fall of Shiganshina? And isn't Emir too young to be the Emir that's talked about in Ilsa's notebook? But I still got this idea that maybe their Titan nature interferes with their aging somehow, and they're much older than they appear. They haven't given me direct evidence of that, and maybe they'll directly disprove it in the next episode. I mean, that happened with my Snowy Mountain, or maybe it'll be confirmed like it was with the Armored Titan. I've just got to go along for the ride and see, but I kind of think there's some magic about aging when it comes to Titan shifters. You know, Emir, I want to talk some more about Emir and Krista again, because Emir clearly seems alienated from the Titan shifters' leadership the same way Krista or Historia is alienated from the nobility. So that's why I'm seeing this similarity here. Emir clearly not aligned with Reiner and Bertolt when all the events happen at Utgard Castle. She does not seem to be in on whatever the game plan is that Annie and Bertolt had. And that's why I wonder if maybe she is the rightful heir to that leadership, but she's an outcast for some reason that'll later be revealed, just like Historia is an outcast. And I guess I got to talk a little bit about Krista's true name, Historia Rice. And the word Historia, well, it very clearly to me, at least the English name Historia, seems derived from the word history. But I do believe there's meaning in the fact that her name is so similar to the word history. And I'm curious about who named her. You know, was it her father who named her? Was it her mother who wasn't wed to her father that named her? And she is supposed to know the history of the walls, so how does an illegitimate child of the nobility get to learn the history of the walls? And I think she was probably taken in by the church. And I think she was probably named by the church. And for some reason that I don't understand yet, but I'm sure I will at some point, I think the church chose to educate her about the history of the walls, the history of this land in which they live. And I think they gave her that name, Historia. They teach her about history. They have some kind of plan for her. I feel like the church is significant in all these events that sweep Krista away from being at risk with the nobility and into the cadets, and they give her the name. And I think it's the church that gave her the information that the church can't reveal, but she's never taken the same oath that Pastor Nick has not to reveal the knowledge that she has. I think she might have been a fail-safe for the church. And then the way that Emir found out about Krista. I just have to wonder if Emir was really in the wrong place at the right time, Or was she intentionally spying? Like, Amir seems to know a lot about Krista, and if Amir's own history has as much intrigue as I suspect it does, maybe she was actively looking, if not for Krista, then for someone like Krista. And I wonder if she was sort of sneaking around the church trying to get information like this, rather than just scavenging for food or whatever would keep her alive another week, as she says. I feel like there might be more to her knowledge of Krista, her knowledge of Historia, her discovery than what we get in Amir's flashback or in her confession to Krista. And I also have to wonder if Amir's harsh words to Krista are Amir's true feelings. Like, does she really think these things are true that she says to Krista? Are these things she says to Krista really true? I don't feel like I know enough to judge that yet. But you know, I love to speculate on manipulation, and it really smacks of manipulation here. Like, I think these are words that Amir doesn't necessarily believe, but they're to manipulate Krista into a certain course of action that Amir thinks is best for not only Krista, but maybe for everyone, like in the entire Attack on Titan world. And then seeing that Amir doesn't seem to be aligned with Reiner, I just have to start wondering, like, how many Titan factions are there? Like, I think you can count Eren and maybe Grisha as sort of a faction on their own. They're like pro-humanity Titans. Then you've got Amir, who seems to be kind of functioning independently. I really feel like Annie, Reiner, Bertolt, they're all in some sort of pro-Titan conspiracy together. And I don't know where the Beast Titan comes into play in all this either. And as I started to think about it, writing notes for this review, I start to think that the Beast Titan probably doesn't know Reiner. Because if the Beast Titan knew Reiner and knew Annie and knew Bertolt and had some kind of alliance with them, I don't think the Beast Titan would have been so intrigued by Mike's mobility gear. Look, I'm holding it as if I'm a Titan. But you know, he held up the engine of the mobility gear for Mike, and he was really, really impressed by it, as if he'd never seen it before. He didn't realize how much the scouts knew about the Titans and that they reside in the Nape. So the Beast Titan didn't seem to have any kind of information you would expect him to have if he were in contact with Annie, Reiner, or Bertolt. And then I really start to think, particularly with things that Reiner says about how he's devolved and about how he's to kill humanity. And clearly Reiner does not identify as human. So I think of Eren, who is a human who transforms into a Titan. But what if these other shifters are Titans who transform into humans? I mean, it's crazy, right? But that's kind of at least their mentality, if not physiologically what happens. What if it is a two-way street? What if there were some smart Titans that figured out a way to make themselves human, but still able to become a Titan first, and that technology gets retro-engineered to create somebody like Eren? I mean, it's crazy, right? But I kind of like the idea, because at the very least, there are shifters who identify as Titans disguised as humans by the words that Reiner says. Or Titans disguised as the wolf boy from a sideshow at a carnival like Beast Titan. And then we get more information about what a small world this is, because once we see Amir transform into the spider shark Titan that I call her, you know, jumping around like a spider, monkey jaws like a shark, Reiner sees her. And then we revisit that flashback from, you know, a couple of episodes before, maybe just one episode before, where Reiner and Bertolt and some other unnamed friend are out and a Titan shows up and kind of attacks them. And it's clear this is Amir in Titan form. And man, this is a moment where I sit back and think, what a small world. But then I also think if they're playing some timey-wimey games with this, maybe this was a really long time ago, maybe not. But wow, what a small world it is suddenly when we see that there's like this glimmer of recognition in Reiner's eyes when he sees Amir's Titan form. I don't exactly know how this plays out, but I could imagine it means Amir is not very much on Reiner's good side. We do see a whole new side of Hanji in these episodes, which I really like. You know, she scared me. You know, she has been the mad scientist. She's had crazy eyes. She has frightened me, but I've seen the leadership side of Hanji, and now I understand how she's risen to the position that she has. And, you know, Erwin, if he's who promoted her to that level, he clearly has good judgment. And I like seeing her comfort Connie. I like seeing her lead in battle against the Titans on the wall and in the rescue effort. And I like that despite her curiosity to experiment on Titans, she says, we're not going to capture these, we're going to kill them. So that shows me maybe she won't put her own scientific curiosity ahead of the fate of humanity like I had thought perhaps she would in the past and in past review videos. And we see Hannes again. Hannes shows up at the wall and he sees the Colossal Titan. And you can see that it reminds him very much of the events at Trost from a few years prior. And it triggers him a little bit. And I don't want to oversimplify a serious condition or to make light of it, but I do think the show has given us a really mild look at sort of a PTSD response in Hannes as this is happening. And also we think about how he has changed his life since the events of Trost, and it looks like he doesn't drink as much, and he's a good engineer and he's a good soldier now. And in fact, I think at one point a very insensitive Aaron asks him if he's drunk, and that's why he couldn't find the hole, just so Hannes can defend himself. I haven't drank in 5 years. And we get this massive fight, and I've got to talk about the fight. I know the video's going long, but this is a great fight. I said when I was doing the reaction video, Aaron looks like he's outmatched, like he's outgunned, and also like he's outnumbered, but the Colossal Titan's up on top of the wall dealing with that stuff. So this means we get a little one-on-one between Aaron and Reiner, or should I say Titan Aaron and the Armored Titan. And yes, the Armored Titan is tougher, and he's bigger, and he's stronger. But we see how Aaron learns. And Aaron, the best way I can describe him is he has this indefatigable, am I saying that word right? This unstoppable will inside of him. And he thinks back to the things he learned from Annie when they were in cadet training in the hand-to-hand combat, when it seemed like that was a worthless thing to learn. But he uses those same techniques only in 15-meter form to sort of feint a punch towards the Armored Titan. When the Armored Titan goes to block it, he goes under, gets him in sort of like this belly-to-belly half Nelly thing, slams him to the ground, breaks off his arm, he's cracking his armor, and it's just really nice to see Aaron progressing so much from where he was the first time he tried to fight the female Titan in Titan form. Really, really good fights. As far as Titan fights go, this is every bit as good, in my opinion, as the big fight with the female Titan at the end of season 1. But the fight ends with Aaron on the ground. He gets dragged by the Armored Titan over by the wall. The Titan screams, and it seems like the same kind of scream that Annie used to bring other Titans in, but other Titans don't come in. What does happen, the Colossal Titan up on top of the wall sort of does the same scream and just falls over. And as the episode ends, we see the Colossal Titan, Bertolt, falling on top of the Armored Titan and Titan Aaron. And what's going to happen? Is anybody going to die? I don't think that Amir or Aaron are going to die here. I could see Bertolt or Reiner dying. I think from a narrative perspective, I've seen things I expected less to happen actually happen. So I think it's possible that one or both of them could die, but I don't think Aaron's going to die. What I kind of feel like my gut is telling me, things always seem to get worse before they get better. So I think they might actually get away. And when I say they, Reiner and Bertolt might get away somehow from this situation. That they might take Amir with them. They might take Aaron with them. But we'll just have to wait and see, because I really don't know where that's going with that big fall happening. But I did see that the Colossal Titan popped into his mouth, and he didn't really chomp them. I really think he's just storing them to get him away, the same way that Annie popped Aaron in her mouth because she wanted to abduct him back when the female Titan was chasing Aaron through the big tall trees and stuff. But not only does he pop Amir into his mouth, he pops someone else in there too. There are two people that go in. No matter how closely I watched, I couldn't tell who the other person was in addition to Amir. And I don't think we're supposed to know, because a character on screen even says, I didn't see who the other person was. I don't know who the other person is. So I think that's to tell me, don't sweat it. You're not supposed to know who that other person is. But the assumption is it's another Titan shifter, right? I can't see any other reason why the Colossal Titan would throw two people in his mouth. One of them a confirmed Titan shifter. They want to get Aaron, who's a confirmed Titan shifter. So I imagine that mysterious other person must be a Titan shifter as well. But I have no idea who it is. But I do, start to wonder some things here, because we've just crossed over the half point of season 2. There's 13 episodes. I've watched through episode 7, and I start to wonder a couple of things, is Levi going to be sidelined all season? How bad is his injury? And it's kind of a bummer if Levi is sidelined, because, people love Levi. I love Levi. But it also makes for some wonderful opportunities to see what other characters can do. Because if Levi's not there to save the day, we get to see Hanji in her leadership role, which is something I hadn't seen before. We get to see Mikasa shine. We get to see Mikasa kind of use a buzzsaw technique that she kind of picked up from Levi, I would imagine. We get to see people like Blonde Elvis, and we get to see people like Mike die heroic deaths. So, I miss Levi, but I'm also enjoying the opportunity to get to know some other pretty impressive Titan fighters among the cast of characters. I kind of wonder when we're going to revisit Connie's village of shifters, because Hanji did make a little bit of a promise in that regard. I'm wondering about Connie's mom and where does he fall into all of this, and when is this going to be addressed? It's not, one of my top 3 or 4 things I'm curious about, but they got to go somewhere with this eventually, and it might not be till the end of the season, might not be until a future season, but I'm starting to wonder now that we're halfway through. And I want to know if we're going to get more answers about the Beast Titan this season. Will it be confirmed for me that he's a Beast Boy running around in the woods, or is he going to be left to almost be forgotten? And that very minute that very episode I stopped wondering what's up with the Beast Titan, that's when he's going to return with some kind of an impact in a future season or a future episode. I don't know, but I'm super curious about the big furry guy. Well, that's it for this review. I probably went on a little too long, but I'm going to go watch a few more episodes. I really want to be all caught up by January when the new episodes start to drop on the final half of the final season. And remember, I'm proud of you for watching anime, and I'll talk to you soon.